Yay, hi.
Hi.
We're back.
We're back.
And we just blew in, blew in with the rain.
Back like a heart attack.
We are, apologize for the delay of getting this one out to you, but we're glad to be back. We are covering, is it phase 1, step 2, destroying the fantasy. We are going through the book, The Parenting Map by Dr. Shefali. I'm Angie Ellsworth, parent coach from Time Out Behavior Coaching.
Lori Lesky, also parent coach.
All right.
Okay, we're just gonna jump right in because destroy the fantasy, which doesn't sound very uplifting, but it's kind of a reality check. And I have worked with families that have dealt with like infant loss and things, and how there's like from the moment you find out that you're gonna have a child, you start planning like by next Christmas, this will be happening. And when they're in elementary school, this will happen. This is where they're going to go to college. And these are the skills they're going to have. And they're going to be a great ballet dancer and all these things. We just start imagining, right? We start setting goals.
College athletes, and
all-
they're going to be on the
all of
honor
it.
roll.
They're going to
and
be everybody's
yes.
best friend.
Our
and-
house is going to be the neighborhood hub
yes,
for
and-
everybody because
well,
we're
yours-
going to be the coolest.
Yours kind of is. But,
No.
but like, you just have this idea of how your family's going to go and what the kids are going to be like. And the reality is almost never according to that plan that we have when our children are young. And that's kind of what this chapter talks about, that sometimes we have this movie scripted about all the roles that everyone's going to play. And it starts right out. It talks about all before our child is even born, we have this all parents want this perfection, unending happiness, great success. I want my kids to get all A's. I want them to make the goal in soccer and be the quarterback of the high school football team, and where everybody loves them and wants them, and we really set them up for it's at the top of page 25. It says it's our child the child in our movies, nothing short of a genius. Our child should be the one who ends world poverty, solves cancer, all of that kind of stuff. It's fine if they're have any characteristics like Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., or Oprah Winfrey, basically a mini God.
Yes.
Yeah. And we put that onto a
baby.
child who picks his nose and eats his booger. It happens.
It happens. And here's the thing, like, I don't know about anybody listening or watching, but I remember like getting married, being pregnant. Pregnancy was a breeze, right? So that just pregnancy was a breeze for me. So that just perpetuated this idea that everything's going to be perfect.
Yeah,
right?
Getting everything I want.
Yes. And my son was born, and I swear 3 months in, we were new to Rochester. My husband was working. It was the summer. I was off from school and work, and he had colic, and he was born with an upside down stomach. And so every time he ate, he threw up, and he wouldn't nurse, and he wouldn't sleep. So we had to work through some stuff. Right. But, I no lie, I still remember to this day, I was sitting in a rocking chair, staring out my living room window and rocking him, and he's crying and crying and crying hours on end. And I remember thinking, what in the hell did I just do? I'm not kidding. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
Like, is this what I just did? Why? Like, no friends or family around.
Right.
Like, no. Yeah. So it was kind of a reality check.
It kind of says at the middle, towards the end of page 25, that you realize you have entered into a life sentence of toil and labor. There's
Life sentence.
There's no going back. And yet these expectations that we have for our kids are not ones that we necessarily would put on ourselves, and certainly not on our best friend. Right.
And to keep in mind that, like, you have more than one child, and I have more than one child, and maybe we have kids who have pieces of some of these fantasies being met, right? Like, yes, you're fabulous at school. I don't have to worry about you. But I tell you what, the reality is that when we're parenting, we can't parent all of our children the same.
Oh, no.
And when we do, and here in hindsight, of course, I've seen that we tried to do that when they were younger. And especially now that they're older, it blows parenting theory out of the park.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's the thing too, is that what this chapter helped me recognize is we have to find the strengths in our children and let their strengths be their guide.
Yes.
And we cannot project stuff on that. Like,
Mm-mm.
and unless we're intentionally thinking about it again, like the first part said, look in the mirror, right? Like, whose goal is this? When you go to, anybody out there go to like the youth soccer game or the youth lacrosse practice where the parents are absolutely wackadoo.
Yeah.
I mean, check yourself. Whose goal
Yeah.
is this?
And
right?
and I've been in a position to, and you have too, been in a position where those kids, the athletes on the field, talk to
Mhm.
you, and they will say, it's so embarrassing when my parent comes to
Mhm.
the game. Like, I don't want
Yeah.
them to come.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, we definitely have to check ourselves.
Yeah.
But can I also say that sometimes, and this is where our inner child or some of our unmet needs that we end up projecting onto the kids, that when we deal with our kid with colic in the upside down stomach, or we're up late night worrying, or you've had 4 years of ear infections and now we've got tubes and all that kind of stuff, and you really, it's like blood, sweat, and tears, you're like all in the parenting, and we can fool ourselves to think that because we've done that for them, that they owe us something.
Yeah. Like, I deserve you to be better.
Yes. Yes. So like at the bottom, it says, if we're raising them 24/7, doesn't this mean we own them and we have some rights? Like, you can't treat me that way because I was up all night with you for when you.
And
got
if
your
you only
tonsils out.
knew,
Yes,
if you only knew what
exactly.
I do for you, right?
Yes.
I mean, I haven't had a new pair of shoes in 7 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I think some of this too is like, so on the bottom of page 26, I questioned this, the second to the last paragraph says, what I'm saying is true on some level. Your poor kid just has to say that they enjoy banging on tables, and you buy them a drum set and enroll them in music class, right? Like, that we try to give them, with the best intention, we try to give them everything that we think they need, because they are showing an interest in it, or because we want to nurture that, right? We want to nurture their gifts. We see that, oh, well, like you said, you like soccer, or I think you like soccer, or, oh, you're banging on the table, then, oh, we should get you some drums. Let's see if you like drums. Or, I think that for me, I question how much was too much. Like, again, in hindsight for my own kids, how much is too much? Was it worth being gone every night of the week? Was it worth, eating lunch out of a bag? Was it like, I just wonder, how much is too much? And that's not for us to determine, for you, but it's intentionally. And that's what I like about this book, is that intentionally gives us a moment to pause and say, okay, if it's too much now, how can I change it? And in hindsight, even now as a parent, this has helped me even look at where I'm going with my young adult children.
Yes.
Like, how am I nurturing and helping them grow now?
Yes.
When they still struggle with things.
Yes. And actually, a really kind way that God or the universe forced me to look at myself in the mirror was when one of my middle children was, as in 5th grade, was in the highly gifted program in 5th grade. And
oh my gosh, you did an amazing job growing them then.
I know.
It's all because of you,
I know. Yeah. And I was the classroom mom, so I was there. And
you could volunteer every day.
I could volunteer. I volunteered a lot. And while I was volunteering, I heard how other gifted parents treated the teacher.
Oh. Ouch, I can imagine.
And this is where like the nose picking, eating the boogers kind of thing happens, because I was in and I knew all of their classmates, and I knew that like they all had different intelligences and they had gifts and things, but they all had some kind of quirks, right? And then I would hear these parents of some of these kids that I knew that just really were not all that in a bag of chips, and the parents were coming in and they were yelling at the teacher, and I need a syllabus for a 5th grader. I need a syllabus for the whole year. I need to know what you're planning to do. And I'm like, wow. I mean, that to me is a perfect illustration of my child is playing a part in my movie, and no one's going to get in the way of it. Not to put too fine a point on the fact that they're like 10 and 11 years old. Like, they got about 5 more minutes to be a kid. Yeah.
And that sticks on page 27, where it says, This is because we were not fully seen and honored for who we authentically were as kids. We have a gnawing sense of an inner lack, right? A void of something we did not feel like we had met. Now, that doesn't mean that our parents didn't do everything to meet our needs.
No.
Not at all. It's
No.
not, there's no blame there on what our parents gave us or not, but it's what we as our own people like thought, right? So like, why do I feel like I'm, for those of you who don't know me very well, I'm kind of a driver. Maybe a workaholic, maybe
Maybe
something, but
Yes.
why? But why?
Yeah, because it's never
Why?
enough.
It's never enough and it's never good enough. And not that that's bad, but I like things to be perfect. And I only like to do them my way. It's clear though. This to me was like a slap in the face. It's my desperate desire to fill an inner void. And I don't know where that void came from, but it's a constant desire to always do better, like always do better, not be satisfied, right? And where did
Yeah.
that come from? I don't know. Is it oh, here, I even made a note in my margin. Here's where I think it came from for me. Is it times in basketball when I was in high school and we never won? Could it be that? I don't know. I'm just saying, like, these are weird things,
No,
right?
I'm really glad you're doing this work. I really am.
Trying to heal myself.
It's really important.
But is that something from my 16, 17, 18 years in high school, 18, why is that the first thing that came to my mind? This intentionality of looking at this. And if you're doing this book study with us and you're reading this and you're starting to make notes in the margin about how much this is true for you, maybe the answer doesn't come from why, but maybe just the answer comes from because that this is just this is where it is.
Yeah.
And I don't need to know why, but wow, that just helped me, I guess.
Well, and knowing it allows you to look for it,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like,
And to just be
like-
mindful.
like, is this my story or is this?
right,
Yeah.
right. Yes. So there's no such thing as a perfect life. Sorry, Facebook people. I'm sorry. Now,
Instagram.
that's another whole story. I think we could do a podcast on that about your Facebook life.
Yeah.
But each stage, and I think we have to be mindful of reminding parents, because I think we both know that we hear it a lot. When families get through one challenge, there's a sense of relief, like, finally, now my life's going to be normal.
We've never arrived.
No, and that I think that's something, each stage has its challenges. So
Mhm.
as we look at, this journey for our own self-discovery never stops,
Right.
because every time our kids have a challenge and then we perceive or project our feelings on them, then we're creating it again.
And
for
we're
what
going to
reason?
keep doing that with our grandchildren.
Yeah. So where's
Um,
it coming from?
So that each phase, I use the analogy, like each phase of childhood has beautiful flowers
Mhm.
that are beautiful to look at and to smell and to experience. But there's also the fertilizer that makes them such, right?
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
when you get through and you're like, oh, I can see the flowers now, and we're riding and things feel a little bit smooth, you're like, yeah, enjoy those moments because those will pass too. And then there'll be a new challenge. But know that each challenge breeds
Mhm.
beautiful flowers.
Right. And then the weeds come.
Yes.
And then you gotta go spend some time weeding.
Yeah.
Cultivating.
Yep.
Oh,
So the part about that void that you were talking about,
mhm.
that somehow we feel more worthy or more valid being the football mom or the
PTA president.
the dance mom. Yeah, I've done that.
Mhm, me
Mhm.
too. I
Mhm.
know.
Yeah, so that's not fair to put that pressure on the kids.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times, with a lot of families that I've worked with, parents kind of, they either over manipulate or they feel like their hands are tied because they feel like they are responsible for every choice that the child makes, and somehow it's a reflection on you as a parent.
Mhm.
And most often that's not the case, especially as kids get older, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we can
Kids don't care.
no, we can always be better parents. We can always work towards that, but we cannot take responsibility for every little choice that our kids
Right.
make, because we could do everything right and they're still going to choose
Make their own choices. Yes.
to do whatever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see. We're gonna try to be mindful of timing today.
Yeah.
Because we know we could talk forever on some of this stuff, but we want to also be mindful of you and your family, busy family time.
So I just wanted to point out, because I think I see this with a lot of parents, and when I was an early parent, I felt like this too. And I've actually had I've gone to some parenting classes where they've said to teenagers that were there, we did like a parent and teenager sort of kind of thing. And the person who was leading the discussion said, if your parents are yelling at you, it's because they're scared and worried. That's when our voices raise. And what that means is that we're dysregulated as parents. Not that like that the kid has to say, you know, my parent is fine with things unless
they're yelling
or freaking out about stuff. And so we can't justify that and say, you know, well, I was really worried. Now, if your child runs out into the street,
sure,
you're going to yell,
sure,
because you want them to be able to hear. But when we're dysregulated, or when we're feeling upset because our son didn't make the basketball team or whatever it is, make sure that we don't spend so much time justifying it, and maybe just being curious, why do I feel that way? And kind of do some of that inner work.
And the piece that I'll throw caution out as is that then how do we help our child understand that? And that gets right into like on page 32, when we kind of challenge those scripts then, right? Because one of the biggest things that I see as a challenge is then it's the coach's fault. Your kid didn't make the basketball team.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so then there's always somebody else to blame. And then we start creating this additional, you know, sequel to the movie of, now I don't like anybody else who makes me not be successful. Right. It's somebody else's. So we miss accountability. We miss, you know, the responsibility for whatever is the truth.
Yeah.
Okay. So on 32, it kind of, there's some, and if you have a book, feel free to use these as kind of homework prompts, but things, again, just kind of to give you intentionality is, you know, taking a moment to write down your fantasy movie for your child. Like what, even if they're 8 years old, 11 years old, what is it that you know, the movie you told yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
And everybody's done it.
Absolutely.
Subconsciously. We don't even have to do it consciously.
Absolutely. And I just had this conversation with another parent just a couple weeks ago, because they just received a new diagnosis for their 5-year-old. You know, and so now their movie totally flipped, right? And so now their movie, what their hopes and dreams and goals and all their aspirations were, now it's shifted quite considerably. But now they have a reason to look more intentionally at their child and not their own. So, I mean, as devastating as that diagnosis was for them and their hopes for their boy, but you know, now they really are focused on him and
they can
needs.
be child-centered.
Absolutely.
Like, what does the child need? Then that's what we're going to facilitate. The other thing that happens when we jump in like this, like, and I had a friend whose son had been on the basketball team, and he tried out for his senior year and he didn't make it. She was livid. And she went in and talked to the coaches, and how could you do this? He's been doing this. He's been playing all the while, and he got outplayed. But it's his senior year, and we had all these plans, and this is his only opportunity, and yada, 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 yada. And not only does that make it somebody else's problem, like you didn't make it, but what that communicates to the child is like, this big thing that's happening to you that's really hard, you can't make it through without me trying to save you.
Right.
And that really crosses some wires in a kid's head. And how many times do we do that when they're younger? You know, like I got a bad grade on my book report in 5th grade. Well, I'm going to call the teacher and I'm
Mhm.
going to find out what the heck happened. And
Mhm.
instead of like,
Empowering them to
Yeah.
solve the problem. And if it's
Yeah.
not a big deal for the kid, then don't make it be a big deal for you.
yes,
I mean, and that's hard because, but again, it's because it's the
It's
movie that
us.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's what we wanted to happen.
Yeah.
And if it is a big deal for your child and they have questions, then encourage them. Okay, let's sit down, pretend I'm the coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ask me a question about why this happened or what could I have done differently.
Right.
Or, we had to do that with my daughter who had some feelings about a situation with one of the coaches that she
Mhm.
participates with in a team. And it was, you know what, you have to talk to the coach. You can't just ghost them because that's not going to help. And we kind of
Mhm.
walked through like, all right, well, who can you talk to get some advice? Who can you talk to? What could you say? And of course, kids, teenagers, they don't want to talk in person. So
No.
it was a text message, but that was better than nothing.
Work with the tools you
And
have.
we did. It was a good first step. But anyway, then checking yourself, right? So once you write down that movie and you kind of write and you're looking at it and you're thinking, okay, yeah, these are a lot of my things. Then what the book challenges you to do is write down those fantasies on the left column and then write down some of those realities on the right. Okay. And you know what? I mean, I had 2 kids who started off their whole youth career in sports and dance and music and gymnastics and
Yep.
all the things, right? And finished their high school or near finishing their high school careers with little to none of that stuff.
Mhm.
And for me, I think back and I think, wow, why did we invest so much? Who was driving that? Right? Time, money, energy, time away from family, time. I don't know. So anyway, it does. And then fill in those columns and then check the gap. What's the gap that you see between fantasy and reality? And it doesn't create anxiety and stress.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to tell you, like sometimes it's not like the reality says doesn't like sports or whatever. I've got a couple kids whose IQ is ridiculous. They didn't get it from me, but their IQ is ridiculous, so much so that we have that school asked them to be tested for their IQ to see where they would be. And Mensa says that if you have an IQ at this level, then you should be doing these sort of things.
Sure.
And for one of my kids, I think they'd like to just wander in the woods and like pick up moss and look at butterflies and stuff.
Forage around and eat roots.
And like, yeah. And like being a NASA physicist, like they would not be happy at all. And so I think sometimes we even get like or we might have a kid who's born with some disabilities. And we might say, well, their whole life is going to exist in this chair, but maybe it's not.
Right.
So it goes the other way too. Sometimes we're like, oh, well, my child was diagnosed with dyslexia. So now they're going to, they won't reach a potential, and that's just not the case either way.
Right. If you haven't done any research into growth mindset, okay, this is a little side note. We're huge supporters of growth mindset. Carol Dweck's done some amazing research since the late 1970s about the power of how we can praise kids for their effort, not for their ability. Okay, so how hard they work, how determined they meet challenges, how they overcome mistakes, all of that kind of stuff. So growth mindset, if you're interested in some more resources on that, even for little tiny 5-year-olds to start with some fun videos and some conversation pieces
and
about
changing
that.
your language.
Definitely changing.
It's not the good girl, good boy,
no
kind of stuff, or you made me so happy. It's
not different. You're so smart.
No,
it's you worked hard. So I mean, it's just a little tweak on some of the vocabulary, and it can make a huge difference.
Difference.
Let's see. Letting go of some of these fantasies, letting go of these movies and rewriting your script. These can be painful. It can be It can be hard.
It can be very painful.
Yeah.
But I love that it says once we accept our reality as it is instead of fighting it, there's a greater sense of peace
Mhm.
and enjoyment of our kids.
Mhm. I remember when my youngest was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder when she was 12, I think, 7th grade. And I kept pushing her to do all this stuff.
And she
And-
thanked you.
She did not. And then ironically, I remember the turning point where this came true for me is that she said, she would go to like basketball practice or some sports practice, and it was just too much for her. And then finally, after one season, she said to me, she goes, I'm not playing that sport next year. And I was like, well, yes, you are, right? Like,
Yes, I remember.
I
that.
was a college basketball player. You're darn right you're playing basketball in high school, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I remember checking myself and asking her, tell me why you feel that way. And she said, it's too stressful for me, Mom. It's too much for me. And I thought, okay, here's a girl who's on the spectrum.
Mhm.
She's trying to play 9th grade basketball.
Yeah.
And I mean, talk about sensory overload, plus
Yes.
the stress of competition, right?
Yes.
Okay, so guess what? She became a manager for the sport and she's in her glory.
Yeah.
No pressure. She knows her role. She's with the team.
But can I say that was like, if you want to go to a stick shift mentality, I mean, you were like in 5th and you shifted down to 1st, and there was a visible jolt
oh,
for you and the change of your
Quite
language
clearly.
and stuff. But the relationship that you have with her
mhm.
is
Flipped
oh
180,
my
you guys.
gosh,
And
so much better.
I think that some of our own stories. So if you're listening to this, send us a message with your story, or send us like, if the things that you're reading in this book or you're hearing us say, if they're kind of hitting home for you, like that's the part that we miss about having this engaging, live study with you. But, write in your margin, write in your book, and then, or type into the chat on the Facebook link where, let us know where you're finding some agreement, or where you're finding these pieces that fit for you, because, we're pretty sure that some of this stuff is making sense as we go.
Do we have, I think we've got time if we're gonna be that efficient to get
Okay.
through step 3, relinquish control.
Oh my goodness. I'm a control freak. I'm working ever since I met her, though. I've been doing really good.
Because I've been in my own metamorphosis. Thank you very much. I was
Right.
actually just talking, I was with a mom. What's today? I was with a mom anyway, earlier this week. And she was talking about like people have to follow the rules. Like you have to follow the rules. And like the kids, there's a place to put that. So it's got, and we,
Mm,
when we're feeling like parts of our life are out of control,
mhm.
sometimes we really double down and dig our
Right.
teeth into, I told you to take the garbage out and
Yeah.
you took it out 15 minutes later than I asked you to. And like,
Right.
and then that becomes a huge thing. And that is just us trying to soothe ourselves, because we feel like so many things I can't. And
Mhm.
so we find those things that we can control, and then we really try to control them. And sometimes it ends up being our kids.
It backfires.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I think this gets into our intentions are always good,
Yes.
and we know that no parent ever wants to do wrong by their child, right? Sometimes we learn through the process that we might need to change that. And right in the middle of page 35, it kind of says it's mostly about some sort of control. Okay, when there's arguing, when there's challenges, when there's stress, when there's a story, when it's the movie's not going our way, right?
Mhm.
Who's pushing back against what we had envisioned?
Because if they would just do what we asked them to do or what we told them to do,
Perfect.
they wouldn't fall and skin their knee. They wouldn't get sick from germs that,
Clothes would
And-
be put away,
Yeah.
toys would be picked up.
yeah, you'd have
Yes.
much a cleaner
Yeah.
space, less static in your life. And so so we do that out of love. Like, I'm telling you how to make your life easier. I'm telling you how to avoid some of the pitfalls that I had growing up, and you're not listening.
Mhm,
So, and then we have to watch them trip and skin their knee
mhm,
or get sick or can't
Right.
perform the next day because they stayed up all night or whatever
Right.
it is.
right. And
Ooh,
the part that I liked on the bottom of 35 is that, we don't treat other adults that way. Right? Like I don't get on your butt when you don't do something in your job or when you don't
Mm-mm.
answer an email. You know what I mean? Like, and I remember my mom used to say to me, would you talk to your grandma with that mouth? Right? Like, no, I wouldn't. So a lot of times we see memes or we see, quotes or something that says, talk to yourself like you would your best friend.
yeah.
And that I think kind of catches me sometimes. Or talk to your children like you would your best friend, or like you would your mom, or you would your
Yeah.
grandmother, a loving
Yeah.
person.
Best friend is usually the safest relationship.
Yeah,
to put
right. I was
that
gonna
on,
say,
because sometimes-
yeah, I caught myself. The other
Yeah.
day, somebody told me, no, their mom was not. Like they would never talk to them.
No.
So
No.
yeah, so a loving, yeah, you're the person you care about most. Would you talk to them like that, right?
Yeah.
And how can we, how just that piece is going to benefit the relationship. Okay.
There's
what
some
else you got?
statements in
There's
here
another.
that are just kind of hard to swallow.
Hmm.
A large part of your love is fueled by the thirst for control and possession. On page 36, parental love traditionally isn't just pure and true love. It is love plus possession plus control. And it makes it sound really sociopathic, really. And
Yeah, right. Because all we hear is like, oh, you're possessive, you're a control freak. Ooh, that's bad.
yeah,
right?
yeah. But it goes back to what we were talking about. We're just trying to help them navigate life, but we're doing it in such a way that makes it more about us than about them. Because really, everybody learns in a different way. And I had to learn the hard way.
Mhm.
If someone had said, if you do this, then this is going to happen, and you might not like that, how that turns out for you, I'd be like, sign me up. But then when I had that experience, I was like, oh, now that knowledge is mine. Like I
Mhm.
had to earn it
Mhm.
in sometimes painful ways, which was very hard for my parents to watch.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I like the question that says, and it's taken me a while to learn this. Actually, I just caught myself and my daughter recognized it a couple weeks ago. Who are my kids truly and what are their needs? What do you need? What do you want to be? Who do you want to be? Instead of what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like it's not all about what you're doing. It's about the kind of person you want to be and what are those needs and how can I help you meet that? And I mean, seriously, my daughter's 18, almost 19. And when I asked her that a couple weeks ago, she's like, you've never asked me that before. Who do you want to be? I've never asked her that before. Instead, I'm always asking, well,
Are you
what are you
scared
gonna
of
do?
the answer?
What are you gonna do? Well, no,
Sometimes, but we might be.
but we might be, right? Like we're in such a functional society,
Mhm.
transactional,
Yes.
right? Like we gotta go, we gotta meet up, we gotta, keep up. And we get stuck in learning about ourselves and helping our children learn about themselves along the way.
Yeah. And I think that transactional piece goes back to all the sacrifices that we make.
Mhm.
Like I spend, X amount of dollars on my kids every month.
I took you to
Just-
practice 6 times
Yes.
this week.
I got you Taylor Swift tickets. Right? And you just feel like, did you take them to music lessons? Did you buy them
Mhm.
Taylor Swift tickets? Did you, take them to Valley Fair for all day
Mhm.
because it was good for them or because it was good for you?
Right. Yeah.
Because it does feel good to do good things.
Right.
But then when you're driving home from Valley Fair and everybody's crabby and
Oh.
yelling at you and you're like, I spent this many dollars today.
Right.
And you guys are
Right.
ungrateful.
Oh, I know. And they don't get it. They
No.
don't get it.
No, and they shouldn't.
No,
Like,
no.
That's us.
Right. But it is, I mean, we've been indoctrinated to a traditional fear, blame, shame model. in which we're forced to suppress our own fantasies. Because we haven't suppressed those parts, then we project and model that onto ourselves. So what are we afraid of? What are we shameful of? What are we,
Mhm.
either taking the blame for or refusing to take the blame for? I think those are both, all things that we're looking at. Let's see. So I think here's kind of an interesting piece to just kind of mention.
Yeah.
The author here says, she's not advocating for a hands-off approach, like no passive parenting, right? But when we talk about letting go of a little bit of control, it's about how do we share that? And I always think about it as, the consultant parent, right? Like
Mhm.
you're guiding down this path. The kids are running down the path in the woods, right? And they start to veer off, but how do they know that they shouldn't get back on the path, right?
Mhm.
There's a path there, but sometimes it's wider, sometimes it's narrower, sometimes there's a tree across it. And how are they going to figure it out? Do we scream ahead at them and say, there's a branch in the way, right? Well, when they get to the branch, they're going to see it and they're going to figure out how to get over it. So
Mhm.
are we allowing them to meet the branch, figure out a way to get over it and continue on their path? And that's where I think that control, where I have learned also to be like, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out. I know it seems scary, but I bet you know how to solve this. I mean,
Right. Because if you yell about that, you probably yelled 27 other times that day.
Stay on the path.
Where if it was like you're about to, you're running in the dark and you're about to fall off a cliff, yell about that.
Yeah.
But the rest,
exactly.
let them problem solve as they go. And they get a
Exactly.
sense of self-worth and empowerment
Mhm.
and I can do hard
Independence,
things. Yeah.
all the
that stuff.
things. Yes,
All that
yes,
stuff.
yes. All right, what else you got?
These are just really sour things to hear. That, like at the top of page 38, the truth is this: each and every time I've been upset with my daughter, it's been because of my need for control and power, not because of my love for her. When I expect things to go one way and they go another, I lose my cool. I can pretend it is because I love and care for her and that my anger is out of concern and caring, but this would be a bold-faced lie. The truth is that every expectation we have, every should we place on our children, and every need we have for them to be a certain way emerges first out of our own need for control. And I have a neurodivergent kid too, and issues started coming up when they were very young, and so I did a lot of things trying to help them avoid pain, right? Helping them to avoid the negative experience or looking different or any of those kind of things. And so I jumped in a lot, and now that they're an adult and they've done a lot of therapy, as have I, and they're coming into their own, they're much better at communicating with me and I with them, saying like, I was, I came in because I wanted to help with this, and they say, well, that was what would really be helpful to me is, which is kind of that question, like, who do you want to be? Like, I see that you're overwhelmed and you've said that you're really upset about XYZ. Is there something that I can do to help you with that situation and give them back the keys to their own life? And sometimes they'll say no, and sometimes they'll be like, yeah, what I really need you to do is wait longer when you knock on the door before you come into my space. Like, that would make me feel much more autonomous.
Right.
Okay. And then take that seriously and do it.
Right. The phrase that I was told that made the most impact is to use something like, if there's something I can help with, right? Because like we try to learn about our kids and their strengths and what, like if I need cupcakes baked, I'm going to go to one specific child, right? If I need some help outside in the yard, I'm going to ask another child, because those are their interests, those are their strengths. Our children also know what our parental strengths are, right? Like they might be different than what we think, but like I have a kid who comes to me to talk before they go to their dad about certain issues, but I have another kiddo who definitely goes to their dad about some things, but about other things comes to me, right? So kids know our strengths too. So if we were to say to them, if you think there is something I can help you with, that I can do for you, right? Like, not just tell me what I can do, but you know how I can be. If there's not, if I can do that for you, then ask me, because I'll do it. Right.
And I think that's an amazing thing, because our kids do know us
Mhm.
at a very young age.
And we forget.
Yes. Like we're just trying to get to know them and what their strengths and weaknesses are. We don't know that they're like, their eyes are on us 24/7. And the best example of this that I had in my family was our adopted son that we got when he was 16, and he would talk to each of us about different things. And, you know, initially I was a lot of the communication, and then I was like, oh, he's going to my husband for these other things. So it was like something like
What did I do?
Am
Why
I
did-
not meeting
Yes.
his needs or
Yes,
whatever? And
yes.
he's like, no, dad kind of approaches problems this way and you approach problems this way. And I'm like, is that okay? And he's like, you need each other to balance each other out. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yes.
Thank you
Yes.
for pointing that out to us, because that's really helpful.
Right. And I think that sometimes that we forget that. Now, granted, as kids get older, they're more in tune to that too.
Yes.
But I think that helps us when we talk about letting go of some of that control. Like, I don't need to tell my kids how I can help them. They're gonna know that I'm here to help them in the ways that they already see me helping, which sometimes they don't like, right? Like sometimes we help
Yes.
and they don't want us to.
Yeah.
But when they know we can help in that way, they will then ask.
Mhm.
And that, I think that is something, it's just a really interesting kind of aha.
I think in the world today, we have a lot of confusion about what the word love means.
Mm,
And I think it's been, I don't know, I think it's been destroyed, like the pure true definition of love. And it kind of talks about that, the top of page 39. When I was at the high school, I met a 9th grader, timid, smart, kind young lady. And in one of our very first get to know each other conversations, she said, I'm going to an Ivy League school. And I said, wow, that's a great goal. I said, what are you planning to do? And she's like, I'm going to be a doctor and go to an Ivy League school. And I said, how long have you wanted to do that? She's like, that's what my family does. And I was like, all of you have done that? And she's going through, aunts and uncles and parents and grandparents, Cambridge and Oxford and Yale and whatever. And I'm like, well, if that's what you want to do, that's a great goal. And I was lucky enough to see this child grow into their senior self. They did not go to an Ivy League school. They still went to another very competitive school. And they're not going to be a physician. They're going to be something equally fabulous, but it's what they want to do. And I think that's a really good example of sometimes this is what the Ellsworths do, right?
Right.
We're star athletes.
This is what we do.
Yes, you're genetically.
And the pressure that puts on, indirectly or directly, the pressure that puts on a kid to succeed in an area where, now I'm going to go back, you were on 39, I'm going to go back to the middle of 38.
Yeah.
Right. The pressure that puts on a child's sense of self, right? So typically what this doctor identifies, and pretty clearly I would agree.
Yeah,
I think
so
these
too.
three. No, I don't know if she has research to back this up, but typically 3 main reasons for problematic behavior in children. Number 1, a lack of information. They don't have enough life experience to know how much factual data that like we do, right? So which is what we coach, transparency. Give your kids the why, tell them the reason, help them understand the cause and effect and the expectation, the consequence, right? Okay, so lack of information causes problematic behavior. Number 2, a lack of skill, because it's not that they won't, they just can't yet. Their brains aren't developed enough to do everything that we're asking them to do.
Like if you told a 2-year-old to ride a 10-speed bike.
Yeah, and I mean, that's pretty dramatic.
Well, I know, but
it is.
Sometimes.
And we have kids who, like maybe we're trying to figure out exactly why they can't or won't do something, and we just don't know the answer yet, right? So always kind of check yourself. Do they have the skill and the ability? So you can't ask your kids to do chores or something if you haven't taught them explicitly how to do it.
Yeah.
And the tools they need to do it. Okay. And then the third thing is that lack of self-worth. which is where this, when we have these expectations for our kids, that this is what our family does, you have to meet these lines, right? You have to reach this bar, that lack of self-worth, because they feel afraid and anxious of rejection or invalidation.
Yeah, I want you to be a big truck mechanic, but what I really want to do is
Yeah.
what they really want to do is like design clothes.
Yeah. Yeah. Like how invalidating is that? And sometimes I think, like that was hard for me to read, because you know what? The times that we deal with that in moments, as our children are navigating their next paths, I mean, like, wow, yeah, so I mean, these pieces are really, I think eye-opening. I hope you guys are finding some of that too, that these are just kind of checks and balances,
Yeah.
as
So
we
ask
go.
yourself, top of page 39, the bold statements, are we saying anything either in our head or actually outside of our mouths that sound like this? Like, I want you to grow your hair out because I love you. So I had a child shave their head that was female.
Ah.
And not everybody was in support of that.
I can imagine.
Yes. And
Yes.
it's like, well, you're gonna be miserable if you shave your head. Well, guess what? They weren't. And
by the way, they were quite beautiful when they did shave their
yes,
head.
perfect head.
Yeah.
Perfect head. I called you fat the other day because I love you. What?
Yeah, I yelled at you the other day because I love you. If you say something like, if you are having some parental regret right now, which hang on to yourself,
Yes.
okay?
Yeah.
Give yourself a little cushion here. Some of these pieces, right? This is the intent of this book study, is to help us just acknowledge ourselves first, and then help us be better parents, right?
Yeah.
So moving forward. But those are the things, if you catch yourself like, okay, I'm guilty on those bold things, I've said a few of them, I'm sorry. I did not say them because I love my child. I
Right.
said them because I'm trying to be in control.
Yeah.
I'm trying to fight for,
Yeah.
I think you should do what I say.
Well, yeah, I think I know better.
So, yes. So
Yeah.
check that out. All right. Be in touch with your inner control demons. Okay. That's kind of the piece.
And go on to, because when we don't get that control, when we're not successful at that control, that we allow ourselves to be the victims. Like you wanting to do what you want to do has violated me.
Yes. How dare you not respect me? Right?
Yes.
How come you don't listen to me?
That word's thrown around again.
It's another word.
It's another word that's been like
Yeah.
prostituted in the
Oh.
recent years. It's been used very poorly.
Yeah. There's nothing
Yeah.
stronger, right?
No.
Okay. All right, putting it into practice. So we've given you some examples, but here's some ways that we can let these things go. Powerful exercises to expose the conditional nature of our love, right? Now, we all say we love our kids unconditionally, but we've kind of come through this process where we've said,
Sometimes it's conditional.
yeah, I love you when you do what I want you to do, right?
Right. That's what they're getting.
Right.
Whether we say that.
Right.
That's how
right,
it's landing.
Right. It's coming out that way. So here's a couple of fill in the blanks. If my child behaves like blank, then I feel proud. Okay, so it's the if then, which we like these statements when we give this to you as a parenting tool. If you clean your room, then we can go outside, right? If you do the dishes, then we can have ice cream. Okay, if then is a powerful redirection tool.
Yeah.
Behavior management strategy. But this one is being used with your child's behavior, right? Not just the do, but the way they're acting. If my child behaves like
throws a tantrum at Target, then I feel angry.
So again, what they're trying to help us recognize is our child's behavior is not who our child is.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
If my child behaves, or if my child acts like, a stink pot, then I feel disappointed. Okay. So we're trying to let go of the ownership, the control of, I can control my child, but my child's behavior can impact my feelings. It's about my feelings. It's not about being in control or about, so see if you can try some of those. Doing this exercise will expose any if then, right? Any conditions that you have. In fact, the author challenges us to examine how many times a day we use if then, okay? This kind of conditional control sets up a sense in our kids that their validity is based on pleasing us and being obedient to us. When they behave well, we give them praise and a sense of worth. When they don't, we withdraw our praise. Okay. So,
Oh,
and again, here's the hard part. Don't be hard on yourselves if you see the conditional nature of your love.
mhm.
Okay. We're really trying to
Does
look
it-
at,
This doesn't make you a bad parent, just so you
No.
know, and we're gonna have hard times.
yeah.
And I think
yeah.
when we're kind of checking that, like, if my child acts like a jerk, then I feel disappointed, like when he's hurt a friend's feelings or something like
Mhm.
that. Then to deal with that feeling, because a lot of times when that happens, that's when we try to jump in and exert control. Like, you can't do that.
Yes.
You can't do that to Johnny.
Right.
You're not allowed. That's not what we do. So you need to fix that.
Right.
And it comes across as control instead of, what do you think Johnny felt about that? Like,
Mhm. Yeah. Curiosity again, from
Yeah,
a place of
yeah,
curiosity.
yeah.
What were you thinking when you treated Johnny that way?
yeah,
What was making you,
do you think you're gonna be better friends or?
Right.
Yeah.
right. Okay. She's got a story that she shares at the end, about a family that she worked through this with. If you're curious about reading it, 42, and then it ends, on 44, with that story, a little bit more of
Mhm.
an if then conditional approach helps build connection too. So, all right, that is what we have for you today. Step 4 and I don't know if it even goes to step 5 because we haven't read that far ahead. Yes. Step 4, end the chase for happiness and success. And step 5, dump the savior complex. That one might be hard for me.
Yeah.
All right.
But if it's hard, that means we gotta do it.
You got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so please give us some feedback on what you guys think. We enjoyed talking about this together, but we also hope that you are finding some knowledge, some validity also to yourself, right? Validating where we're at on this parenting journey, whether our kids are older or younger, whether we have some kids that, don't challenge us, keep our map, the road's pretty clear with those children, and maybe some of our kids, they haven't even put their parenting on the map yet. So
Yeah.
give us your feedback. We appreciate you watching and listening, and share your comments down below.
And be well.
All right.
Be well. See
Take
ya.
care. See you next time.
Bye.